So this short video is about compost, a highly controversial subject. I'm sorry to say that it's actually really difficult to do proper compost of any kind if you live in a small flat and you haven't got anywhere to put stuff out. And I think you do need some sort of small garden, but it only does need to be a small garden. And of course you can buy expensive this and that and containers to put compost in, but mine is a sort of classic, ordinary, as cheap as you can get compost system. So behind us here I've got a couple of pallets. I put one over the top to stop the rain falling on it too much because I put a bit of polythene over that normally. So it's just two pallets that are making two separate boxes, and I'll talk about why that's how it is in a second. And then I use things like, you know, a bit of an old washing machine to jam it down the front and keep things in. So there's not a lot of money or anything being spent on this. And I'll show you the kind of things that I put into a compost heap. The household waste, which comes in all the time, and I put in citrus fruit, lemons, oranges, tea bags. We don't use the sort of, there's a posh tea bag which comes in a triangular shape, which is definitely made of polythene or something that doesn't break down. And you can quickly see if yours do or don't break down, the ones you use. So if they don't break down, change variety, because some of them do have polythene in. Paper, if there's paper or cardboard, that's fine. That's the sort of thing that I pick out later, so that's a bunch of beetroot, and I've just noticed that there's a rubber band on it. So usually that might end up going through my compost, shouldn't have ever been in there, and I'll take that out later, you know, when the whole thing's rotted. Yeah, so that's just sort of household compost. And then I'm really happy to see quite a lot of twiggy stuff. So this is this is stuff out of the garden waste. All of my weeds go in the compost, and then things that are quite twiggy, even quite big. What's that? So that's a bit of a vine, because what I'm looking for is something that's really aerated from the bottom. Because there's two things to look out for. If your compost heap's got lots of wood lice in it, it's too dry. So you need to be doing a bit of watering. And yes, I do have a pea on my compost heap sometimes. So that's one way of putting water in, and also nitrogen, which helps build things up and make it even more fertile. And then the other thing is, if it smells at all, or is smelling, you know, unpleasant, it's almost certainly too wet. And often that's because it's got too dense, too heavy duty. And that's why you have the two bins in part. So what I'm doing is I'm layering up compost during the year. So I start off with a load of twiggy stuff. And actually I've got a couple of old pipes in underneath to let the air in. So lots of nice twiggy stuff to let air in from the bottom. And then I'm layering in compost, stuff from the household waste, garden weeds, and bits of cardboard. So I rip up bits of cardboard, preferably wet, as you can see, not very ripped up, and all of that will be gone shortly. And you know, avocado seeds, bung them in. Often they sprout, and then you've got an avocado plant. So I'm completely not fussy about what goes in there. And then once this is built up, so that'll build up to this kind of height. And then when that one's built up, I'll empty this one, and then I turn it all across. So I'm just, and the turning is really, it's kind of, if I was turning this side, I'd just be forking it through and then tipping it onto the other side. So I'm trying to break up lumps and make sure that the air's getting into that. This side's ready to go, actually, this right-hand side, out back onto the garden. That one's probably been there 2 or 3 months at the most. So as I say, an incredibly simple system that keeps it nice and small, and you can do smaller versions of this. This is not going to kill weed seeds. This is, in many ways, this is a wormery. It's absolutely packed with worms. If I dug into this side, well, of course I can't find any now, but further down it'll be absolutely packed with worms, and that's what this is really about. It's not the sort of compost which has got a lot of grass cuttings on, which are trying to get really hot, which will kill weed seeds. So I make sure I don't put weed seeds on, and I don't put perennial weeds, convolvulus, cooch, or anything like that. So I try not to put any weed seeds on, because they'll come through the system. So what we're doing here is we're creating our own soil, or we're getting the fertility into the soil. The aim, as far as possible, is to have a closed loop. So everything that comes into the household is going back out into the garden. So you know, for me, the brown bins that people put out are a travesty. Why are we giving away all that fertility to somebody or other who's then going to make money out of it, selling it back to us in a plastic bag? It makes no sense at all. So if we can keep it and make it into compost with all that fertility, get it on the garden, why not? So this is the end product. This is compost 9 months ago. This would have been, you know, the compost that's come out of our kitchen. So all the sort of things that I mentioned just now that have gone into it. You know, and it's pretty much completely broken down now. Sort of smells of nothing but gorgeousness. Actually, you could eat your lunch off it. It's one of the things that I'm not bothered about is having a certain amount of sticks and stuff in it, because it helps to aerate the soil. And one of the purposes of compost is to give you a better quality of soil, as well as to be putting nutrient back in. So I'm not bothered if there's some sticks and things. If I'm making a seed bed, I'd rake them out and put them back on the compost. What I do pick out, whenever I see them, are the inevitable bits of plastic. So however careful you are, because I've been putting cardboard in, as I mentioned, often that's wrapped up in a bit of polythene. So this will be a bit of plastic wrapping. So it kind of gets everywhere. And I try and make sure that I take that out whenever I see it. So I'm not putting that back into the garden. But this is incredibly fertile now. And I'm about to rake that over a seed bed and then dig it in slightly and then squash it down with my feet. And then I'm going to sow carrots and beetroot into that in the next few days. So the third video we're going to make is about pricking on seedlings. And we'll have a look at what seedlings I've got going on in the garden now, and I'll just show you how I prick them out and how I move them on.